It was supposed to be just another typical night shift, the kind that drags on slowly with nothing much to do except the usual. I worked at a 24-hour convenience store on the edge of town. It was the kind of place where customers came in and out at odd hours, sometimes just for a quick snack, other times just to escape their homes for a while. Nothing special. Nothing ever really happened. At least, that's what I thought. It was late in the evening when things started to feel off. I was behind the counter, the flickering neon lights outside casting an eerie glow through the front window. The store had been quiet for hours, with the only sounds being the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional rustling of the paper bags. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence, and I absent-mindedly checked my phone. No texts, no notifications, just the stillness of the night. I had about 2 hours left on my shift when the doorbell jingled and a man stepped inside. He wasn't exactly strange-looking, but there was something unsettling about him. He was tall, maybe around 6'2", with a long, dark coat that seemed a little out of place for the warmer weather. His eyes were hidden behind large, dark sunglasses, even though it was well past midnight. He walked up to the counter slowly, almost methodically. His footsteps echoed in the quiet store, like they belonged to someone much heavier than he was. "Late night, huh?" I said, trying to break the silence. The words felt hollow as soon as I spoke them, and I immediately regretted trying to make conversation. He didn't respond. Instead, he just looked around, scanning the aisles, his gaze lingering on the rows of snacks and drinks. For a moment, it felt like he wasn't even acknowledging my presence. My skin prickled. "Can I help you find something?" I asked again, my voice a little more nervous this time. His gaze snapped to mine, and he tilted his head slightly. His eyes, I couldn't see them. The sunglasses were too dark, but there was something about the way he looked at me that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I forced a smile, but he didn't return it. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, and slid it across the counter. I unfolded it with shaky hands. It was an address, nothing else. Just an address scrawled messily in ink. "Are you lost?" I asked, holding the paper up to him, but he didn't answer. He just stared at me, his expression unreadable, as if he was waiting for something. I felt uneasy, but I couldn't put my finger on why. Something about the man, or maybe the situation itself, was making me feel like I was in danger. But I had worked night shifts for years, and I knew better than to let a little anxiety get the best of me. Still, my instincts were telling me to be careful. "Are you sure you don't need help?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." The words sent a chill through me. I forced a smile, trying to brush it off as some kind of weird joke. But he didn't smile back. He didn't even move, just stood there, staring at me with those dark, unblinking sunglasses. I'm just finishing up my shift," I said, my voice wavering. "If you need something, I can—" "Leave," he interrupted, his voice cold. "Go home. You're not safe here." I didn't know what to say. My stomach churned and I tried to laugh it off, but it felt more forced than before. "I'm fine, really. It's just a night shift. I've done this 100 times. But he didn't respond. Instead, he turned and walked toward the back of the store, his footsteps oddly silent for such a tall man. I didn't know why, but I followed him. I wasn't sure if it was curiosity or something else, an instinct to keep him in my line of sight, but something pushed me forward. The store was unnervingly quiet as I walked toward the aisles. The flickering light above me cast strange shadows on the walls. As I reached the end of the aisle, I realized something was wrong. The air felt heavier, colder, and when I turned the corner, there was no sign of the man. I stood there for a moment, listening. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerators in the back, but otherwise, nothing. It was too quiet. My heartbeat quickened, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Suddenly, I heard it. A thump, a dragging noise like something heavy scraping against the floor. I rushed toward the sound, my heart racing. When I reached the back of the store, I froze. The man was standing in front of the back door, his back to me. He was holding something. It was a large black trash bag, but it wasn't the bag that caught my attention. It was the sound, the wet, squelching sound as the man dragged the bag across the floor. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I stood there, frozen in place, watching as he began to drag the bag toward the back door. And then I saw it. A small, bloodied hand protruding from the opening of the bag. My stomach turned. I couldn't breathe. It was the hand of a child, pale and lifeless. What is this? My voice was barely a whisper, shaking as I spoke. The man turned, his face still hidden behind the sunglasses. But now, his expression was something different. It wasn't cold anymore. It was hungry, dark, predatory. "You shouldn't have stayed," he said softly. "Now, you're part of it." Before I could react, he lunged at me, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. I struggled, trying to break free, but his grip was like iron. He shoved me toward the back door, and I felt the cold air hit my face as I stumbled outside. But what I saw next was far worse. The parking lot, once empty and silent, was now crowded with cars, dozens of them, all parked in neat rows. But there were no people, no drivers, just the cars, parked in silence. And in the distance, beyond the rows of cars, I could see movement, shadows, shifting, gathering. They were coming toward me. A group of them. People? No, not people. There was something wrong about them. They moved with an unnatural, jerking motion like puppets on strings. They were silent, but their eyes followed me. They were empty, black, hollow eyes, all staring at me as they shuffled forward. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. My legs were shaking, and I could barely keep myself standing. The man behind me chuckled, a low, mocking sound. "Welcome to the last shift," he whispered, and then everything went dark.